I'm going to be showing you how to make a lamp out of these wooden blocks. Whoops. But not only that, I'm going to be making a silicone mould so that I can cast some of these in resin. So the wooden part will be the main base of the lamp, and then obviously the resin part will be the light. And I'm going to go into the details of the light a little bit later on. But first I need to do the silicone mould and the resin pouring first, because that's going to take the most amount of time. But before I do that, I'm just going to show you how it's going to come together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile them up in groups of 4. Okay, it's not holding together very well, but you kind of get the idea. It's just going to look kind of like a matchstick. Although if you know your games, it kind of actually looks like a Minecraft torch. So that's what I'm going for. It's probably going to be pretty easy to make this part. These blocks will just glue together, and I'll just do them bit by bit and just until I've got a tower of blocks. And then obviously the resin blocks will go on top. And I'll figure out the lighting a little bit later on. But first, let's go check out the silicone mould making process and the resin pour. In order to make a silicone mould, I'm first creating a container to hold the little blocks in. I'm just using foam core board stuff. It's quite easy to use, and it breaks away really easily once I want to get the mould out of it. So I'm just hot gluing that together, making sure that it is a tight fit and watertight, which it wasn't, you'll see later. And then I'm just going to glue down the blocks to the bottom. I'm using these red lentils just to see how much silicone I'm going to need, and thankfully these bottles were enough. I didn't actually use all of the silicone in the bottles. Silicone release will help release the blocks from the mould. And there you can see I'm fixing a gap in the container, which I didn't make watertight. And now it's just a matter of waiting till the silicone cures. Once I've got all the blocks out of the mould, I just want to tidy it up a little bit. Unfortunately, the glue at the base of the blocks did kind of make the mould a little bit odd shaped, which is not too much of a problem. So I'm just tidying up the mould a little bit with a knife, just making sure there's no little bits hanging off, and then it's time to mix up the resin. I've got 8 blocks, so I'm going to be doing 2 sets of each colour, so I've got 4 colours, and I'm just doing yellows and oranges. I did overfill these moulds a little bit, and one started leaking into another, but it wasn't too much of a problem. I was able to wipe it away. It was just, yeah, I really shouldn't have overfilled them so much. I just thought because resin does shrink a little bit that I would try and compensate for that, but I really shouldn't have. I'm just going to grab blocks in groups of 4 and glue them together, and I'm going to do them in stacks, and I'm not going to do it all at once because I learned my lesson when I did my previous Minecraft tools video. If I try to glue things together too quickly, then it kind of all falls apart. So I'm going to take my time with this, and I'm going to be using the same tacky PVA glue that I used for that because it holds it together really well, and yeah, it's pretty easy to use. Now that it is all glued up, it is starting to look like a matchstick. In fact, it's probably going to look like that when it's finished. And I've got all my cast little resin blocks ready to go. Now, I ran into a few problems while I was doing this. I actually had to cast the resin blocks twice because the first ones that I did, I ended up sanding all 4 sides. And when you sand resin, it goes all cloudy. Now, I could sand it into oblivion and make sure that it gets all shiny and polished, but I actually discovered that I'm really lazy and I hate sanding, so I don't really want to do that. The other problem is the resin is filled with bubbles, and so when you come across a bubble on the side where you're sanding, all the resin dust fills up into the cavities and creates all these little dots on the side, which is really annoying and it looks awful. I could probably sand it out, but again, like I said, I hate sanding. So I'm not going to do that. I cast the resin blocks again, and when they came out of the mould, they're actually fine. They don't really need any sanding at all. They're shiny enough. It's just one side of the blocks do actually need sanding because there's a little bit of a lip of resin on the top. But since it's just one side, I'm going to make sure that that side is not actually facing outwards on the torch so you don't see it. I'm going to move on to the lighting now and tell you what I've figured out. My first idea was to have the blocks like this and then drill a hole through the middle of them. That way I could drill all the way through the middle, which is how lamps are anyway, aren't they? They've got a wire through the middle, the light at the top, and you either have a wire to the plug hole, or I was going to put in a battery pack. And I picked up these off Amazon. These are just little battery pack things. They come with, you know, a switch on it as well. It just takes the CR2032 batteries, 2 of them, and then you just attach an LED at the top. You might want to add a resistor or something. Don't know a lot about electronics, so if you want to make something like this, look into it yourself. Please don't take anything I say about electronics as fact, because yeah, I know zero about electronics. So I did consider doing that, and it would sort of, it doesn't really fit. I'd need to make the wire longer. But I decided against doing that because having just one LED at the top isn't going to be very bright, because there's going to be 8 blocks of resin on the top, and it's just going to be a very small, dull glow. And so I want this to be as bright as it can be. So I found something else on Amazon. It's these tiny little LED light things, and they're like fully submersible in water and stuff, and they're pretty cool. And what's more is it comes with a remote control. How awesome is that? So you can like just turn it on, you ready? And I can change the color. I mean, not that I would probably need to, because I'm going to have a specific color for this, but how cool is that? And you can do fade and all sorts of things. Right, sorry, I'll turn that off and stop shining it in your eyes. So I'm going to be using that. Now the way I'm going to do it, well, this is another problem I come up with. I had 4 blocks like this, and I drew a circle to like see where it was going to fit, because what I'm going to do is sit this actual LED inside these blocks, and then sit them on top, and then you got the resin on top. But oops, drilling a hole in this kind of turned out to be a lot more tricky than it should have been. I tried using this bit on my bench drill, but every time it came in contact with the wood, it would just stop. So I think there's something wrong with my bench drill or something. I even tried a flat drill, you know, a flat bit as well, but that still wouldn't work. To get around that problem, I've come up with another idea. I'm going to have the 4 blocks that are going to contain the little LED, and I'm not going to glue them together yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take each block and cut out a rounded area so that when you put all 4 together it creates a circle. To do that, I'm just going to sand it down. I've got a Dremel with a sanding bit on the front, and then hopefully this little LED is going to fit in the middle of them. It'll sit on top, surrounded by the wood, and then the resin will go on top. So let's get on with a little bit of sanding. sanding down the blocks was pretty easy and then just gluing it together. But to make the resin stick to the wood and make it removable, I'm using magnets. And to do that, I'm just carving out a little hole in each side on both the resin and the wood, and then I'm gluing in the magnets on the resin side, and I'm leaving the paired magnet on the resin so that when I actually put the glue in on the wood, I can then line it up carefully as I glue in the magnets for that, and it will just be perfectly aligned. And just as a side note, I did make the holes larger on the wooden pieces just so that I had some room to move to make sure that I could line it up properly. Onto the painting. This was quite simple. I just painted out little blocks in different coloured browns. I probably could have painted the blocks before I glued them together, but like I said earlier, I changed the way that I was going to be managing the lighting in this, so I'd already glued them together at that point. It's done. It's done. Here it is. And look, I've got it connected with magnets, so the top's not going to fall off. I'm not going to take it off at the moment because the glue is still drying on the magnet pieces. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. This is a Minecraft torch. But before I give you the really cool shots of it close up and everything, I made another one. I made a soul sand one. And this one obviously has the blue resin on the top. Yeah, I can take the top off this one. You can see there's the light inside it there, and it just attaches like that and it doesn't come off. So that's handy. I can gain access to the lights. But I guess now you want to see it working. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. So let's have a look at the final shots.